Mongo. Joining me, my co-host, Vanessa Moss, political consultant and attorney Vanessa Moss, workout queen. And Allan Lengel, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, New York, Washington Post and the Detroit News by way of the Eagle American. Okay, outrage of the week, Vanessa. Ladies first.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have two, and I'm going to make it very brief because I'm sure you guys are going to chime in. One is this whole thing about Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon both being fired for their job. They have all this hoopla going on, and they shouldn't have been fired. If you're a Tucker Carlson fan, people are really pissed off about that. People are upset, especially Black America, about Don Lemon. Listen, I'm outraged because guess what? Their problems are not our problems. They are doing fine financially. Don Lemon went on his yacht and said, "Hey, it's past me." Listen, these people had a job. They were at-will employees, or even if they had a contract, that when you work for somebody, that you take the risk of getting fired. But how in the heck are people outraged about somebody else's work business? Now, we don't have that kind of outrage when we have the headlines here in Detroit about people getting laid off at the big three, people losing their jobs there.
Well,
and this impacts the middle class. They don't have anything to do with the middle class. So that is one of my outrages, and you get ready to say something.
No, I was just saying, well, look, Tucker makes, who knows what the hell he makes. He makes a shitload of money.
Don Lemon too. He makes all kind of money.
But people care because they're fans.
Wow.
They turn on the TV and they're in their living room.
Are you going to lose some sleep over?
No, I'm glad both of them are gone, frankly. I don't care for either one of them. But it's not like
you're glad they're gone.
Well,
but it doesn't make you no difference.
Well, Tucker Carlson, I'm really glad. Don Lemon, it's not like yay, Don Lemon, but Don Lemon became a distraction. He started to be the news instead of reporting and talking about the news. And I think
not everybody can be Bill Bonds.
Yeah, you're right.
Because
right.
Bill Bonds, he took it to another level. Before your time, Joe Pine. Remember Joe Pine? Yeah. These folks, they were shocked. They were shocked commentators, and they get on there. They curse people out. They want to fight. Most of the time, they were drunk and all kind of other stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
So, and let me make this point. Then I'll talk about my next outrage. Is that I'm not happy that they both lost their job. I do think that people like Tucker Carlson, I want to know who you are. I want to know who your supporters are. I like them showing themselves.
He used to be with CNN.
Right.
He used to be with MSNBC or whatever. And he wasn't.
He changed his shtick. Right. He changed his shtick to accommodate, to pander to the crowd.
So that's even worse.
Exactly.
You know what? Like, that was you from day one.
Right.
You say, I can't stand the guy, he's full of shit, but that's him.
Right.
But when he goes from, okay, I'm all right, I'm a semi-journalist, to he a Nazi. He a neo-Nazi, racist, white supremacist.
Well, Sean Hannity is the same way. Sean was, I don't think he was as crazy as he is now, but he panders.
And Bill O'Reilly
They know the crowd. That's, look, Rupert Murdoch created the craziness and did a great job, but he brought on these people knowing they were going to serve a more conservative audience, and so these guys were like, yeah, whatever you want.
And speaking of Rupert Murdoch, who gives a flying stuff about him and his doggone station? And you want to, and I think we're going to talk about this later, we talk about Tucker Carlson. Now you want to show all his dirt, right? But you knew what this guy was from the beginning. You knew what he was doing. But now that you got to shell out this money because of this lawsuit, now you want to throw mud. I'm just outraged that people are that concerned about two people who don't make a difference in your life or my life at all.
Okay.
That's one. Two, the other one is this whole commentary about ageism. Now, I think we can all agree that as we get older, we may not be as sharp as we were when we were younger. However, the wisdom that we have, I think, is beneficial to society. The reason I'm talking about this is that people are dogging out Joe Biden, President Biden, because he's running again. He's too old. You even had, I'm pissed off. You even had Nikki Haley, who, by the way, which is interesting, Don Lemon made a comment about her being beyond her prime to run. And then she turns around and talk about Joe Biden and says, basically, listen, he's going to be dead in 5 years. And really, it's a dog whistle, because what she's saying really is, y'all don't want that black woman to be the president of the United States. That pissed me off.
We don't want her.
It pissed me off.
We don't want her to be the president.
We don't want her. And you know what? I don't like the fact that you're talking about people in their age and saying
it's
that he's
legitimate.
Listen,
it's legitimate.
Let me tell you something.
Grandpa,
it's legitimate. Listen, the United States has been run by old white men.
So what? He's
forever.
Too old.
The exception is Barack Obama. And then for you to say, listen, he's too old.
He is
people talk about Jimmy Carter. Listen, Jimmy Carter's still living. And Jimmy Carter's still active, still great.
He brain dead.
Whatever.
He brain dead.
Whatever. And for people to say, I'm not going to participate.
Reagan had dementia. Reagan had dementia. And it's legitimate. And I'm not saying he should.
You said Joe Biden has dementia?
No, it is a legitimate concern.
It's
legitimate.
But do you think that it's legitimate enough for people to say, well, if he runs again, I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for him because of his age.
That's up to them.
I'm not saying it's not. You asked me about my outrage.
Yeah.
That's my outrage.
Well, it's interesting that the age thing. I mean, Trump is 76, I think, right now.
Yeah.
Extremely overweight.
By the time, if he were to get reelected, he'd
5 lawsuits.
He's 78
and then
years
82.
old. But I'll say this: I think it's for Joe Biden. I think it's a legitimate concern, but however, I think it's if he's got the stamina. Look, when I watched Bernie Sanders, Trump, Biden campaigning, I'm much younger than them, and I could not keep up that pace. I mean, these people are built a different way, and they have the stamina. So Joe Biden, look, if he's got it, look, he gets little credit for what he's done, and he's actually done a decent job. Look, I would say my favorite president is Barack Obama. And Barack Obama was sort of a remake of JFK, who I thought JFK was when I was growing up. I loved JFK, as an elementary school. But, you hear all the stories now, what we thought, the Camelot, the whole thing. But Barack Obama was the real deal. He was a family man. He was straight up, I assume.
Andrew Johnson was my favorite president.
All I'm saying is this.
Yeah.
I don't like the discrimination for ageism. I'm sorry. And Nikki Haley, you can't have it both ways. Don Lemon can't get in trouble for telling you that you're beyond your prime and making that comment.
Right.
And then you turn around and you talk about somebody else's age. The hypocrisy of it all outrages me. It pisses me off.
It's called Politics 101.
Now, I'm going to do real quick, and I'm just going to let the video speak for itself.
Okay.
This is my outrage of the week.
Next tonight, 3 managers at a Lowe's store in Virginia are out of a job tonight, fired after calling back one of their drivers out on a delivery. The customer the driver was on the way to see allegedly wanted only a white person to make the delivery. Here's ABC's Mars Scavocampo.
Home improvement retailer Lowe's has apologized after a veteran employee was pulled from a delivery job because he's black.
And I got a phone call on the phone telling me to bring the delivery back, saying that I couldn't do the delivery.
Danville, Virginia driver Marcus Bradley saying he was told the customer didn't want a black man in the house. Shockingly, the store honored the request.
I mean, I thought that Lowe's would take up for me.
So who did take up for him? His fellow driver of 11 years, refusing to complete the delivery with a new white partner.
To me, that it just ain't right for a business that we work at to go on with the woman's wishes.
In a statement, Lowe says, "We have zero tolerance for behavior of that kind. We have apologized." But one person who is not sorry, the homeowner, as she told ABC affiliate station WSET.
Do you feel bad about the delivery driver?
No, I don't feel bad about nothing.
She said,
I don't feel bad about nothing. It's like, it's a reminder of the landscape of America. What's out there. I mean, we live in the city of Detroit, and and we're not exposed to that, at least not on that.
Well, we done had it before at Sinai Hospital, where a white patient several years ago said he didn't want black doctors, black nurses, black anybody. And a white nurse said, "Okay, put a sign out there," and she got fired. But the whole point of, I would have took his ass and put him out on Outer Drive. And go find someplace else. So, your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's so hard to imagine this and as we see, the woman's unapologetic. She's just very like.
Why should she apologize for how she feels?
But I was saying, a friend who's thinking about selling his home, he's black. His black real estate agent told him, take down some of the pictures when we do a showing of the house. And he's like, why? And he says, well, some white people won't move into a house if a black person has lived there before. So,
but this is the thing. I don't think the woman, the homeowner, should apologize for how she feels. I do think that Lowe's was wrong for honoring her wishes. Listen, lady, we don't
get your ass over here and pick it up yourself.
We don't want your business.
Why don't she go to the KKK retail outlet?
Whatever the case may be.
And they'll deliver.
Right.
But that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now I go to my outrage. 88-year-old Carolyn Bryant died the other day. She was the woman at the center of attention of the Emmett Till case, where she lied and her husband and brother-in-law went with the help of others, murdered, massacred, whatever you want to do to this 14-year-old. I'm outraged that the bitch lived 88 years. That's what I'm outraged, and that she lived another 70 fucking years and enjoyed her life. That's my outrage. And you know what?
I'm laughing at what you said, not laughing at her.
No, the bottom line is she's going to a better place where she's going to meet Hitler, Stalin, and all these other Nazis and KKK, Strom Thurmond, all these folks that perpetrated racism.
Like, welcome home.
Yeah, okay. She's going to get a hero's welcome in hell.
Yeah.
That's my outrage.
So do you think she should have been charged?
Prosecuted. Yeah. They should have got her on her deathbed. Listen, I'm with what the Israelis undone. They done had 101-year-old man on trial. Not that he's going to be doing life, but it sends a message.
Right.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Right.
You got to pay for what the hell that you did.
Well, that's why we don't have we don't have statute of limitations here in the U.S. for murder and so in some places rape now. So yeah, I mean, murder and mass murder is certainly not something has expires, but
we got a outrage from one.
Okay, we're gonna play this one outrage from. This is the former police chief of Fenton.
No, Trenton.
Fenton.
No, Fenton is.
All right, here we go.
My outrage is with the Livingston County Sheriff. He's decided not to enforce the new Michigan gun laws based on them being unconstitutional. It's not his job to determine if a law is unconstitutional or not. He needs to enforce the law, not interpret the law. What he's doing is placing his deputies in legal jeopardy, and he needs to reconsider his position.
All righty.
Okay.
Now we have
Before we go.
Yep.
Let's take a break.
Okay, we're going to do a quick break here.
And we'll be back.
A little commercial.
Continue.
We're going to have black and white. Yeah, we're going to have Ike McKinnon, the former Detroit police chief and former deputy
mayor.
Former deputy mayor.
Questions to ask.
All right.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses and neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Okay, so we are going to now bring in McKinnon, who is the former police chief in Detroit. He was also deputy mayor under Mike Duggan. He's also, I know you've been teaching some classes. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good, good. So we're going to talk about the crime issue and about gun violence and stuff like that. And I know Adolph wants to start out.
And how you doing, Chief?
I'm good. How you doing, man? It's good to see you again.
Doing all right. You know, we had a spike of gun violence downtown, especially in Greektown. Is it lack of more cops, or we don't have a game plan here in the city to deal with this kind of stuff?
You know, I think it's a combination of a great number of things. You know, certainly we need more police, but in reality, if we have more police, what kind of policing are they doing? Number one. Number two, where do we strategically put those people? Is it in the neighborhoods or is it downtown? Number three, if we take the police from the neighborhoods and put them downtown, then we don't have enforcement in the neighborhoods. So I think you just said we need a strategic plan in terms of allocating and where we put them. And number four, we got to have a good sense of what families are doing or not doing. You know, I think when you're not my age, but my father and other people would do things differently than some of the parents are doing right now. So it's a great number of things that's happening right now, Adolph.
Chief, I have a question to ask you. Did you get the 12-point plan that they have for police in downtown Detroit?
I read some of it, and you know, it's not a new plan. It's been there. It's been there before.
Okay, so they did it before. Obviously, it was not effective. Would you agree?
I agree with you, and I think that's part of the problem. You see, it's like this. We tend to take something and reinvent it, you know. But I think that probably the people that are there now were not totally aware of the things that were planned before. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
finish.
Yeah, go ahead. You want to?
I think that maybe people. It's kind of like I saw something on TV the other day where someone asked the Board of Police Commissioners about something that they should do, and they said, "Well, we should do that." And they said, "Well, this has been in place for a while." Well, if we have a plan that's been there for a while, let's see if this can work, or if it did work before. And it probably did not work before. I don't know how well this is going to work. They had a heck of a lot of people downtown last night, but it was raining and it was cold, you know. And so we had police and we had community people and things like that downtown. But the reality is that if the weather's bad, you know, the best thing to stop people from acting out in the street is bad weather. And I think that was the greatest thing last night. I was talking to my wife about this. We kind of laughed. We said it was raining, it was almost snowing, it was cold, and you know, people don't want to go out and act a fool in cold weather. So I think the biggest thing that stopped most of the problem last night was the bad weather.
Should we be dependent on community people to be patrolling? Isn't that a slippery slope?
No. I think no, absolutely. We should not be dependent on community people. I think what community people can do, is say, look, we don't want this happening in my neighborhood. Because if you think about this, it's almost like having a vigilante group. If you have, let's say, you had 100 people, community people downtown and patrolling, and they say, wait a minute, I'm going to shoot this person, I'm going to beat their asses, and all those kind of things. Then you got a major problem. So we've got to do more as a city, as law enforcement, and whoever it might be, to stop these. So no, we cannot totally depend upon community people to do those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I have a question. Look, I've been covering crime for decades, right? Detroit News, Washington Post. I saw, like, in DC, they would constantly, they would change the homicide. They would centralize homicide, all the homicide at headquarters. Then they would decentralize and put it in all the different precincts. Then they would centralize again. And what I see is that we're not getting any smarter about fighting crime. We keep just reaching back, and also there's all these other things. There's the prison system, there's the education system, there's the economic system, and I guess two things. Why are we not being more innovative about fighting crime?
Probably because we have a number of new people that's coming in. They bring their ideas. And let me give you an example. When I did my doctoral dissertation, the research I did was on rape. And I surveyed the 28 largest cities in this country on how they combat rape. And you know that most of the cities did not have any plan whatsoever about this. So this is what I'm saying about crime. You have some who try and fight it one way, one try and fight it another way, but they have new people that's coming in, and they'll try their plan to see if it's going to work. It's kind of like this 12-point plan, or whatever it might be planned. Let's look at this and see what worked and what did not work. I can recall when I was chief, we had some community people who got involved. We had some police who got involved, but unfortunately, the majority of police don't know about those plans that were there before. And they have very little interaction with the community. I mean, we can do a TV spot and say, this is what I'm going to do with this group of people, that group of people. But the reality is, what are we doing for the entire city? And that becomes a problem.
You know what, Chief, you hit on something, hit on like 4 points that you said, listen, this is what I think is going on here. And one of the things you talked about is, the people in the community. And you said, hey, when I was growing up, basically parents aren't parenting. I'm just paraphrasing what you're saying.
Yeah.
And my question always becomes, because as a registered voter, as an engaged voter, as a person who is somewhat knowledgeable about what's going on in the city and around the United States, my thing is this. When are people going to take accountability for their actions? You can't police people to act right. You can't legislate people to act right. People have to want to act right and have to care about the community in which they live in. So you could come up with a 12-point plan. You could come up with a 10-point plan. You could have police in the downtown. You could have them in the neighborhood. But if the people in the neighborhood, if the people downtown don't give a doggone, then what? What's the answer?
You are absolutely so right. Now I'm older than all you guys, and I go back to what my father and other people in the neighborhood did. Keith Williams, who used to be he's former commissioner. He's now on the reparation commission. We grew up in the same neighborhood. I'm older than him, but our fathers, our neighbors, they were active in the neighborhood, and they said, listen, this is what you are going to do or not going to do. And it was like a community thing. But right now, unfortunately, we have not only the city of Detroit, but so many cities in which we have people who are not stepping up to the plate. Now, that doesn't mean that they can stop all the crime, but they can teach kids right from wrong. Listen, I have this long history of trying to help young people. And unfortunately, so many of the kids don't know left from right, right from wrong. I stopped a kid once, who's walking down the middle of Jefferson Avenue, in rush hour traffic. Young man, he was 15 years old. And I said to him, you can't do that. he cussed me out. Now, I'm chief of police, okay? I'm in uniform. He cussed me out. I said, man, young man, you ain't gonna talk that way to me. He said, can I say this on the air? He said, fuck you. I said, excuse me. I said, no, we ain't gonna do that. Anyway, so I got him to send him in the car. I said, now, what's your name? He told me. I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 15. I said, where do you live? He said, on the east side. I said, where on the east side? He said, oh, they're near the railroad tracks. I said, no, what's your address, young man? He said, I told you, oh, they're near the railroad tracks. I said, no, what's your address? He cussed me out again. So I took him home. And his mother and father were at home. I told them the story that they cussed me out. What the hell are you doing bringing my son here? So I mean, that's one story, but it's a number of stories that's happened to me and probably to you guys too, in terms of when you try and chastise or tell a child right from wrong. Those are the kinds of things that we are not doing right now, or some people are not doing right now, that can potentially help us with what we're trying to do.
Is residency, we used to have police that live in the neighborhoods and stuff. Now they're talking about first responders, but we got folks that live in Brighton and all over the place. Did that hurt us here?
You know, that literally killed us. I mean, you think about this. When they did residency, I forgot the governor that was under that England. Okay, think about it. I mean, you got people. I remember people saying this, and these are white people who moved outside the city. Last one out of the city, turn out the lights. I mean, you think about that idea, that mindset. You know, they don't care about the city. They're getting their pension. They're being paid, but they don't care about the neighborhoods. And that is one thing that truly, literally hurt our city beyond one's imagination. Absolutely, residency, I believe, should never have been abolished, and it can't be changed now. But if it could, that would really help us.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, it escapes me. I will come back.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back with that. Thanks.
Okay.
Hang in there. All right.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses and neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Okay, we are back.
Okay, yeah, I have a question for the chief. You know, our police officers, firemen, etc., they getting a little raise, but I don't think it's enough. And then I see where our elected officials, they getting the big bucks. Don't you think it should be the other way around?
Well, you know,
I'm glad he asked that question, because that was the first thing I talked about this morning when I got in the studio. And I know you sit on the commission.
I'm on the commission, and one of the questions I asked was, I said, you know, we have union people, great union people who work hard for what they get, and what pay raise did they get? And I think it was 3% or something like that. And so when I voted for, I believe it was a 3% or 3.5% pay raise. I don't think Mike Duggan got a raise, but he makes what, about 160 something like that thousand. And so there was some people who were trying to receive either half as much for their pay raise as others. I looked at this in terms of, look, I know the police and fire and whatever it might be, they certainly need a pay raise, but I could not, in all sincerity, vote for somebody to get a $50,000-$60,000 pay raise. That just wasn't a thing at all.
Well, you know, they say Michigan, the state reps, you know, they one of the highest paid in the country. Our county commissioners for part-time is some of the highest paid in the country. and now the city council want to be some of the highest paid.
I think they got the raise.
Yeah, but the bottom line is that we having issues of attracting good police and fire folks.
Yeah. There's no question. But I'd say this, and I've written a lot about this in terms of who we hire to be police officers. We have to be. There's some guidelines that we have to be careful of. When we hire people, we got to make sure they don't maintain or manifest those same ideas and some of that stuff that happened in Milwaukee or Minnesota or around the country. We got to make sure we get the right people. And if we get enough money, they pay them enough money, they'll come for us. But yes, I agree that we have to pay and recruit the best people possible. But we cannot have people working part-time making the kind of money that they're making. We just can't.
And let me ask you, we always, there's always a lot of pressure on the police chiefs to get the stats right. Sometimes we hear about manipulation of the stats and all that, but are we relying too much on the police department to solve the crime issue? Is the police department, shouldn't they be working a little bit harder, or somebody? I guess maybe that's the mayor's job to kind of pull it all together, to all the multi-prongs of like I said, we have the prison system where we're putting people back on the streets who are some not supervised, some not trained, some not having jobs. We've got socioeconomic issues. We've got an underground economy in the city of Detroit where some people rely on their revenue from whatever it might be illegally. What's the police chief's role and the police department's role in crime, and are we relying too much on them to solve everything?
Well, first of all, it's all of our job to make sure that the city's safe. Now, I say that because as people who live in the city, as parents, as grandparents, as community people, we should try and do as much as we can to stem the tide of crime. Now, as chief, you have to make sure you have good people working for you, that is from the top to the bottom. For instance, let me tell you this. As a young boy, and I think you know this, I was severely beaten up by the police. That's why I became a police officer. I was 14 years old. Rotation Slim, who you probably know, him and his boys beat me up. Secondly, when I was a young police officer during the rebellion in 1967, I was shot at by fellow officers, okay? And thank God they missed. Now, and there are so many of those kinds of incidents that occurred, and those guys who beat me up or shot at me or shot at other people, beat other people up, they stayed on the police department because nothing was done to them. And they eventually, some of them became supervisors. So when you have those kind of people who are on the police department, who did the kinds of things that they did, number one, to me, and number two, to others, if they become supervisors, let's even more so. Back when I was a young boy, the NAACP tried to integrate the police department. We had 5,000 police officers. I think we had 50 of African Americans. And so the NAACP said, let's integrate the cars. A lot of officers, white officers, quit the department and left. Some of those officers who stayed became supervisors. Now here we got that mindset of people who don't want to work with Black people, and then they become supervisors. How can they stem the tide of crime legitimately and honestly and fairly in the city of Detroit? Those are problems that have been and continue to be a problem in the city of Detroit and around the country.
Okay. I had asked the late Mayor Coleman Young when I worked for him, what happened to all those stress officers that was roaming the streets and shooting down young Black men? And when he disbanded the unit, where did they go?
They went to various locations in the police department. It's just amazing. One of my good friends, Adolph, I think you know Ron Fleming because he was Mayor Young's chief. But yes, we talk every day, and he talks about exactly that. He said, in fact, Ron was initially interested. He said he was they had a Black crew, and that was a crew that did not shoot people. They handled it the way it was supposed to be done. If somebody committed a crime, they locked them up. They didn't shoot people. And Ron, he said, what we did was totally different than the other shift. his shift. I think there was 4 or 5 black crews on his crew. The other shift was all white, and they had all the shootings. But it's what those guys did was when they disbanded Stress, they sent them throughout the department in various locations, and nobody heard about them since. But we don't know if, in fact, they got involved in more shootings.
Like, I have a question. When you were chief, was there concern about? I know, there was a time where we had some of the narcotics officers who were stuffing their socks during raids, all that kind of stuff. Did you have a concern about corruption at the time, and do you think it's changed since then?
Oh, I think that the temptation is always there. And I think the potential is always there. I mean, that always. I remember my deputy chief, Rudy Thomas, who was in charge of the finance, and I said, Rudy, let me tell you something. I'm not going to, number one, lose my good name. Number two, I'm not going to go to jail. And I don't want you to go to jail, but you've got to make sure this is correct. And we monitor that. But the reality is that when you have the potential for a guy raiding a dope house or a group raiding a dope house, and what's that movie, New Jack City? Remember, right. All the things that happened. That there's all that potential. There's all kinds of money. I mean, I remember we raided a house, and I mean there were thousands and thousands of dollars. I said, wait, hold on. We're going to have this person and this person stand there and count the money. We're going to take pictures of this. But when you don't do those kinds of things, we don't have those safeguards in line. I mean, listen. I'm not going to say I'm sorry.
You got the guy from Chicago PD. You got a safe in his office full of money.
Yes. I mean, and that's a reality. And unfortunately, other people knew about it. So I mean, these are the kinds of things, Adolph, guys, that was there. And I'm sure in some locations it's probably still happening right now. But you got to have the right people in charge. Number one, the person in charge of the police department. Number two, the people that he or she has working for them to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, if people don't trust the police department, we have the things that happen, like with George Floyd, the things that are happening around the country. And when they get off is even more so. As a young boy who was beaten up and shot at, I had no trust of the police. I had none. My first day on the job at roll call, I was the only black person at roll call. And the sergeant and lieutenant, they were calling out the names and the assignments for where I was working, the 2nd precinct. And when he got to my name and my partner, who was white, here's his comment, guys. He said his name and McKinnon, Scout 27. And this guy, in front of 30 officers and me, he said, Jesus fucking Christ, I'm working with the nigger. Now, and everybody starts laughing. This was the norm.
What were you thinking? What were you thinking when you heard that?
Well, I knew this. Obviously, I was pissed off, but I knew that he was not going to drive me off the job because that was his goal. Number one, he wanted to demean me. Number two, he wanted me to leave. As you don't know the number of black people who left the job because of those kinds of things that happened, And I knew I had to stay. There are guys I rode with for 8 hours. They never spoke with me, never talked with me at all.
Wow.
And that was a norm. If you talk to remember Ken Johnson, who he got into a fight with a fellow officer, a white officer. I mean, he did exactly what I did. He reported things that he saw, and they chastised Ken.
Well, they beat up the black officers in front of Cobo in 1965.
Yes. I mean, there's so many things that were happening. And again, what I'm saying is that some of those officers, the white officers, became supervisors. And I mean, were they going to change their view? No. I stopped as a sergeant. I stopped some white officers from beating 3 young black men. I mean, they were kicking, and I grabbed one officer. I locked him up. I took another officer, and I brought them into the 10th precinct where I was working. And by that time, they had called my boss, the in charge of the precinct, he calls me on the phone. This is like 2 a.m, and he said, "Jesus Christ, Ike, what the hell are you trying to do? Ruin these officers' career?" I said, Inspector, I said, "Don't you want to hear what happened?" No, no. He said, "You're gonna have ruin these officers' career." I said, "No, I'm not ruining their career." I said, "They shouldn't be police officers." And he said, "No, these are good guys." I said, "So you don't even know who you're talking about?" And he hung up on me. But those are the kinds of things that we went through. I went through, I know for sure, but tried to make sure that I stopped. But those were the people that were in charge, and they had this idea that what they did was the right thing to do because they were there to chastise and keep Black people in line.
You know what? I'll go back to. Excuse me. Excuse me. This 12-point plan. You said this is something that is not new under the sun. Has it been your experience, because you've been out of office for quite some time, when people take the helm, do they, I grew up in an era where you talk to your predecessors and you learn from them and you say, hey, do they reach out? Has anybody reached out to you and asked you for your advice, asked you, what do you think will work? Does that even exist anymore? In particularly with the Detroit Police Department?
Some in the police department have.
Okay.
And in fact, I spoke with Chief White. I spoke with Deputy Mayor Todd Bettison. They have. And I give them credit that they're trying to make a difference. But former people, no, they did not. I mean, under the former chief, no. I mean, when you have people who don't think that you can share those kinds of ideas, no. But you're right. I mean, if they would listen. I mean, I talked to former Chief Hart. I talked to him regularly. I mean, Chief Hart was a good friend of mine. I would ask him, "What about this?" In fact, let me tell you, when Chief Hart was in jail, he and I talked multiple times about what I was doing. He would tell me, "Ike, now listen, here's what you do, and here's what you don't do," and so forth. That was those are the amazing things, and we should do more of those kinds of conversations.
Ain't no question. Thank you. You got one more question, Allan, and then we're gonna wrap it up with Chief Ike McKinnon.
Yeah, it's just I hope that it's really more of a statement that we can get a little bit more innovative about, like I say, it just seems so cyclical about, it just goes round in circles. It's the dog chasing the tail. It seems like we never quite move forward. We have drops in crime, and then we have, escalation in crime, and some of it's tied to economic bad times and stuff like that. But I hope that we can all come up with some ideas to move it forward. And I don't know, you're still talking to Chief White at times? And,
yes. But see, I think this, what are the reasons for crime? What causes that? What's the spike in crime? Who's committing crime? What can we as a community, as a society, as a country do to stop crime? I mean, crime just doesn't start because of nothing.
Jobs.
There are reasons. Yes.
Jobs. People need jobs. People need work. People need a place to stay. We fortunate, and we don't take advantage of it. We got several former police chiefs that are still around, that are still alive and kicking. You got one sitting up in the county exec office.
Yes.
Somebody has to do something, but we're gonna have to get you back on, Chief.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Ike. It's great.
This is my pleasure. Thank you all.
We'll have you back on again. There's so much more to talk about. So
okay. All right, take care now.
Have a great
day. Bye now.
That was great.
Yeah. All right.
Let's take another break, and we'll come back
and
we'll continue.
Nearly 30,000 vacant lots all over the city of Detroit are for sale right now. That's right, nearly 30,000 vacant lots are available now, starting at just $100. The lot next to your house or the lot down the street. Make it yours today in just a few simple clicks. Find out if it is available by visiting buildingdetroit.org. At the Detroit Land Bank Authority, side lots are just $100 and neighborhood lots sell for $250. You can apply and pay online today by visiting buildingdetroit.org. And if you don't see the lot you're looking for, call our offices. Our phone number is 313-974-6869. Again, that is 313-974-6869. We have already sold more than 21,000 vacant lots to Detroit homeowners. Make today your turn by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
You asked that question?
Well, welcome back. Listen, I was talking to Allan the other day, saying that I was listening to some of the slave narratives back in the 30s, where the government sent people to interview former slaves, etc. Man, it's unbelievable. And you have to hear some of these people saying,
so we're gonna have to play some
right, saying slavery was a motherfucker. Say they got beat, raped, all kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
and where did you hear that? Where can people find this?
You can go online and do slave narratives, and they start popping up.
Oh wow!
There's no question. And you were telling me about your mother, Holocaust survivor,
right,
did a narrative,
right,
and this goes right in with this. Carolyn Bryan checked out the house the other day. So I asked you to, why don't we play some of it?
So I'll set it up a little bit. My mother lived in Czechoslovakia. She had a big family, and I always forget if it's 7 or 8 children. They had a hardware store in Czechoslovakia there. And in 1944, her part of Czechoslovakia, which was also sometimes Hungary was in charge, sometimes Ukraine was in charge. At the time, I think it was the Hungarians. And they came and collected them. They first took them to a ghetto where they put everybody together, and then 2 weeks later, they started putting people on cattle cars. And I've tried to break it up into little narratives, and part of the reason that it came up again is my nephew sent me the narrative about my mother passed away in 2011. In 2007, she made this. Probably about 4 years ago, I didn't even know it was there. My nephew sent it to me. I listened to a little part of it. I said, I'll get back to it. And I didn't. And I thought subconsciously, it's too painful. I mean, I love hearing my mother's voice, but at the same time, to hear all the stuff they went through is really painful. But the other night, Sunday was like a Holocaust Memorial thing over at the Holocaust Center in Farmington Hills. And so some friends went there and they said, oh, your mother's picture's on the wall. And so I listened to it on Sunday night till about 1:30 in the morning, having all these different emotions that you would have when you're listening to the slave thing of anger, of tears, and then of joy, also just hearing my mother's voice. So we're going to play, hopefully it's not too long. And this is setting up, she starts talking about when they're getting on the cattle cars. She said there were 2 cattle cars. They stuffed everybody in. They stood up for days, no bathroom there, and some people died, passed out. So here's her.
Middle Passage, slave ships.
Yeah.
Okay. And were there a lot of different...
All of us, they pushed us into those cattle trains.
Were there a lot of different transports that left?
At the time, I remember seeing maybe 2.
Two trains?
2 big, long trains,
Right.
And once they put us in our section, it was completely packed. They closed everything.
Okay. And when you went in the train, you were in the same train as your parents, in the same car?
Yeah.
And your brother, Eugene?
My brother, no. Just my parents, my sister, and I think...
Dora,
and one brother. I don't know if it was Baruch. I think so.
At the Auschwitz, and they opened the doors. What did you see? What happened?
What did we see? Barracks. Where they put us in those wooden
Well, when you got out of the train,
soldiers, they're soldiers.
Right. Yeah. Right. But when you got out of the train, didn't you see people? Did you see people in striped uniforms? Did you see dogs or SS officers?
They were dogs, and they were already the Germans took over there.
Right. Now, did you try to stay together with your parents?
No, we stayed in the line. We had to take off. The clothes, and the parents went on one side, and the ones that could work, they put on the other side.
So there was a selection?
But the parents disappeared.
Right.
Really. But, we were girlfriends, we were talking, and even sometimes laughing. We still didn't know where we were going.
Right. So you didn't realize that this was a terrible
but
place?
The parents, they took away, and we never saw them again.
Okay, so was there a selection when you got there?
And when they started picking, I remember one thing, I was sitting near my father before they took them away, and he had a beard, and see that I don't like to, and a German came and was tearing his beard.
Oh.
That part I don't want to talk anymore.
Let me ask you. You sit there listening to that. What did she have any pictures of anything left of her family, or is it all?
She did have some pictures of her father and some other, and I'm not even sure how they kept all the photos and stuff like that. But as she says, or that story I always remember is they were getting off the train. Her father was a religious guy with a beard, and one of the Nazi soldiers just grabbed the beard and started laughing, just yanking them. And she never saw her parents again. That was the end.
What about her siblings?
Her siblings. What happened was she had a couple brothers who left to Israel before the war. Then she had another brother, Eugene, who's down in Florida, who's still alive. He's 97, I still talk to pretty regularly. He was in Auschwitz. He had the little number. He had a job at Auschwitz. He walked down the road, and he was like a janitor for this, I think it was called the Farbman Company. They made the Cyclone B stuff, the poison for the showers that killed. So he was there cleaning up. After 6 weeks, her and her sister, she was with her sister Dory, they went to an ammunition factory in Germany where they helped, I guess, build bombs for, and they just worked every day. They said that the Germans gave them coffee so they wouldn't menstruate. She said she didn't menstruate probably for a year until she was liberated. And Adolph, I told you this before, that was the first time she saw Black people, she saw Black soldiers coming to liberate. It's pretty, and the idea that, and she talks a little bit about standing in the cattle cars, they were just standing upright for probably days. People were fainting, there was no bathroom. So you can imagine, she said, I don't even want to really talk about all that. And people were dying. And then she talks about a friend from back home who was very privileged, came from very wealthy. And she said the friend could, they would get bread that they would ration out. And they were like excited to get bread, and maybe they'd get a little margarine. This girl who was so privileged, she couldn't eat the bread. She would give it to them, and they were like, yeah, sure, we'll take it. And that woman died. So people who could not adapt to some pretty horrible conditions, and if anybody was sick, her sister was sick, they used to hide her sister in a bed, put straw on there during the day, and so they wouldn't find her, because if they did, she said, they would have killed the sister. They don't want anybody who can't work.
So how much of and maybe you cannot gauge, but how much of an impact did your mother's experience have in her rearing her children here in the United States?
It's interesting. Let me play. This is just a minute thing, and I'll give you an idea of sort of her mindset about some of that she was able to see.
Whole thing, it was like that, where kettles are drinking water.
Right.
Along, we could wash our hands a little bit. That's some Germans. They were pretty. Some of it, they were pretty. They felt sorry for us. Said, "Go wash your hands." So and again, there was a time that we worked outside of they bombed the buildings, and we were working outside. And I remember once a few German women, they walked by. They left a piece of bread or a cold drink. It was very hot outside. And they cried even, and then I decided, and I was thinking, not every German was so bad.
And the reason I play that is that we grew up with sort of for her not to hate all the Germans for what happened, and so I think we all grew up, and I think my attraction to journalism was that I grew up knowing, and my first experiences in school where I see authority, and I had a kindergarten teacher who I was super shy, who really did not like me. And so I saw, like, at a very young age, like, this is like an abusive authority. This woman is like being a jerk. And I gravitated to journalism because I knew that I could expose abuses of authority. I could stand up to anybody, any authority figure, and do something. And, we ended up doing stories where people got indicted or people lost their jobs because they were abusing or stealing or whatever.
But that's how it was when we went to Oak Park schools, where they said all of the black kids were idiots, stupid, put them in special ed classes, etc. And I can name all the teachers that dog out black students, sent them to the office for bullshit, etc. And then there were some that pulled you to the side, looked out for you, and say, you know what, they want to apologize for what their colleagues were doing. Like all black kids from Royal Oak Township are stupid. Time magazine did an article on the township kids. Yeah. It said, you know what, not all of them are stupid. One got a IQ of 146. Yeah. I'm looking at this. This is 1960, and I'm in the kindergarten.
I'll tell you, in kindergarten, and just to give you an idea, my teacher thought my mother came home crying one day after a conference and said, "Oh my gosh, tell my sister, I think he's retarded." And and my sister's like, no, he's smart, don't worry about it. So I go to the first grade, and the very first day they put us in reading groups, and I'm in the third reading group, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, I'm in the third reading group. These are all the dumbest kids in the class. And by the end of the first day, I was in the first reading group. And so so you see, teachers have a lot. They're the first authority that we really deal with out of the house.
Let me ask you this. So you went to school in Oak Park. Oak Park was integrated. How did your mom and how did your parents receive that? And what were their, what are their thoughts
about integration and stuff? They we didn't have any problem. I mean, look, my father had, he was a tool and die maker at the Fleetwood plant. He had bars in black neighborhoods where, all the customers, all the workers were black. I went down in junior high to clean up, and I shot pool with people at the bar and stuff like that. So they, I mean, we would, how could we, I can't say they didn't have any prejudice, but they were pretty, open and pretty liberal. And we would, I grew up saying, how can I be dogging another group of people when I've seen what the Nazis did to the Jews?
And it was black colleges and universities that opened their arms to all the educators that was I fled Germany, and you know what? We got a great history together. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna come back. That was, you know what? Yeah, I wish I could hear my mother voice.
Yeah. I mean, it's great hearing her voice. It's painful at times when she talks about some of the
but that's history. And you know what? And you got to have those voices, because people say, "Oh, slavery wasn't nothing. You had a roof over your head. They fed you. You had a job, and all this other bullshit."
Well, you know what though?
And then,
if it was left up to the governor of Florida, you wouldn't be able to play anything like this over here. Seriously, you wouldn't be able to, you know, no, because you're making white America right.
You won't.
Yeah.
And when we get back, I want to talk about, like I say, when I went to in 2003, I was at the Washington Post, and they let me do a fellowship for a month at Duke University. We'll get back.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses and neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
All right.
Yeah, welcome back. Okay.
So I wanted to say, you know, it was interesting. In 2003, I had a fellowship at Duke University for a month, and I studied the Quran and American policy in the Middle East, and I got to teach a little journalism. But it's the program. It was 13 journalists. I was the only American, and 5 of the people in the program were German, and I got to become good friends with some of the Germans, and it really helped me to really, you know, because Germany is sort of this figure there, even though, I mean, these people had nothing to do with the Holocaust. So it's interesting. But I'll tell you a funny story. Probably my closest friend in the program was a German guy, and he wanted gym shoes one day. So I said, "Come on, I'll take you to the mall." So we go to the mall, and we're at Hecht's department store. And he just walks up to, you know, we're in the shoe department, and there's this black guy standing there. And he comes up, and he goes, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me?" And he goes, "I don't work here." And so then I take him to the Foot Locker, and again, there's a black guy standing there. And I go, "No." I said, "He does not work here." So it's interesting, you know, the view. But I, you know, it's like you can't blame, you know, the Germans of today for what happened, and they do learn the history and all that kind of stuff. So the question becomes, what about white people who?
You know what? It's a different kind of situation in the South, because they made babies with their slaves, and you got a kinship with some of these oppressors. You know, your brother might have been oppressing you, or your daddy, or whatever. So it's kind of different.
Right. And so I think your question is as Black people, do we phrase your question again, because I want to make sure that I got it right.
The question becomes like, you know,
are we mad at all
some
black folks?
At all white folks, and say, look, the white people were the ones who criminal behavior, who enslaved us and all that. Is there a cutoff for saying, okay, it's not? I mean, like, my parents came from Europe. You know, they didn't come to the States till like 1948. But you know, there's a generational.
If I have to deal with racism, got to deal with racism, like the chief was saying, he first day on the job, and they attack him because he's black. They want him to quit. That kind of, no, you mad at those people and you fight those people.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. I've had instances where, I think I talked about this before. I was doing an internship at a courthouse, and I won't say what courthouse it was, but it's a courthouse when I was in law school, and the judge was an older white man, and he. You didn't grow up in the city of Detroit, did you? Were both of your parents in the household? All the stereotypes that you could name.
Right.
This is what he thought, and he felt comfortable asking me these kind of questions. So for you, sir, yeah, I have a problem with you. When you look at institutions, right? When you look at universities, and it depends on your interaction, your own individual experience. So as a whole, like if I didn't know you, if I didn't know you, I would look at you. He's a white dude. I mean, he's a white guy. I don't, he's looking at me, a black woman. Until I get to know you, yeah, I'm painting you with a brush. I'm sorry.
Oh well, but we still dealing with the Ron DeSantis. We still looking at Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott. You go to North Carolina, South Carolina. I was in South Carolina a couple months ago. There was a statue in front of in Columbia, South Carolina. Ben Tillman. Ben Tillman got a statue there. Ben Tillman helped lynch black people. Ben Tillman was the governor, former senator. But I found something interesting. My mother father name was Ben Tillman. That's his. Come to find out, his mother was owned by Ben Tillman family and was some kin to Ben Tillman because she was, and today biracial. Back then she was mulatto. Right. We can look at the birth certificates. It says, on my mother's birth certificate, she was a Negro. Her mother was colored and her father was mulatto. This is, they had now, what is it, biracial or whatever folks want to call it, but it was always the one drop of black blood, you black. So there's a whole different ball game when it comes to black people and the South, etc.
I think growing up in the North, when I was down at Duke, which is in the Durham area, the Raleigh-Durham area, went to Raleigh with some friends from Detroit who had come to visit, and in front of City Hall is like the first Confederate soldier, and even though it's 2003, and I'm thinking like, why are they? I mean, it's their history, I guess, but they're embracing these people who were fighting to defend slavery. They were,
when you was at an institution named James Buchanan Duke, who made all his money off the backs of black people. Right. Yeah. There's no question whatsoever. And I find it ironic that half the campus was designed by an architect, a black architect. His brother was a federal judge here, Cook, Julian Cook. Right. Yeah. So. Yeah. So
well, look at the Detroit Athletic Club was Albert Kahn, a Jew, designed it, and that was in 1915. He wasn't, they weren't taking Jews, they weren't taking blacks. I don't think they took women into that club until like 1984.
But they took his designs, didn't they?
Right, and they took it, and to this day, if you go into the DAC, and I wrote a column about this in Deadline Detroit. There are little tiles, swastika tiles in there, and I wrote a column, and they won't budge. It's like, part of history, and I'm like, well, look, in 1915 when it was designed, it wasn't until 1920 that the Nazis co-opted that symbol, which was Indian symbol, and they were like, it's it's a good luck symbol, and I was like, well, and that wasn't such good luck for the Jews.
And
the 9 out of 10 and maybe 98% of the people, if you showed that to them, they wouldn't be like, that's a good luck symbol from the Indians or the Buddhists or they'd say that's a swastika. and they refuse to remove the tile from there. It's just total.
They got a long history of discriminating.
So do you go?
They don't care.
You know what? I've only gone like for fundraisers for a hospice, or if I've had occasionally a business lunch. You know, when
do you buy a Volkswagen?
You know what? It's funny. My very first car was a Volkswagen, and my uncle Eugene was living in New York at the time. You know, he was in Auschwitz, and I was 18. I just started college. And I bought a Volkswagen with a sunroof and a great tape deck. And he looked out the window and he's like, "Oh my God." He goes, "Whose car is that?" And I go, "It's mine." And he goes, "Your parents let you buy?"
Right.
And I have to tell you, when I was 18, I was
same with a Porsche.
I was naive.
Right.
I was naive, and I thought, "Yeah, come on, the anti-Semitism, all that stuff's done with." When I went away to college at Michigan State, I'm suddenly hearing, you know, "Oh, they Jewed you down," and I'm like, "What?" You know, or "Oh, you know," little stuff like that. And I started to hear, you know, I went for dinner one night to a friend's, one of my roommates. Three of us went to dinner in Lansing, and the father was like, we're sitting at the table eating our steak with a little rough steak, and his parents were old, retired Irish folk, and mother was very sweet, and out of nowhere she'd be like, I never told her I was Jewish. She's like, "Hey, Alan, tell me about the Wailing Wall, you know, in Jerusalem." And I'd be like, I go, "Well, I've never been to Israel, but I, you know, understand it's pretty interesting." And she goes, and then like 2 minutes later, "Alan, tell me about Jerusalem. Isn't it fascinating?" And I go, I said, "My brother's been there, but," and so the father looks up very grumpy, like he was a retired accountant, and he goes, "There's other people," he says to the wife, "There's other people at the table to talk to too." And I was like, well, I'm like, I don't really give a shit. I'm just gonna eat my steak and get that.
They Irish?
Yeah. And
tell us about the potato famine.
Yeah. Right. And so on the ride home, I remember Bill, my roommate, whose parents, and we're driving in his green Rambler down Michigan Avenue, you know, the Capitol's in the background. And I said, "Bill," I said, what does your father think about the Jews?" He goes, "Can't stand them. He had a Jewish boss. He hated them. He hates the Jews." And, you know, as a minority, you've got a sixth sense. You can tell when, like, somebody may be joking with you and telling you little stuff. You can have friends who say something and you're like, okay.
Well, I had a grandfather who said, you know, he didn't like anybody, but he said about Jews, he said, "Oh, they'll sell their mother if they can." You know what? And he talked about black folks, but you know, this is, you know, you really grow up the opposite of a lot of that shit.
Right. Let me ask you this though, because you used Jew, and we had a conversation before we went on air a few weeks ago about the N-word. How do you feel? Because you asked us about the N-word. How do you feel even today with somebody, "Oh, he's a Jew," or somebody using Jew, or, you know, Jewed them down? How does that make you feel?
You know, depending on the person. I mean,
it depends on the person. Okay.
Well, you know what? I mean, look, Jew is a fine term, Jew, Jewish, or whatever. But when I hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, all the Jews," you know, I hear some like racist, anti-Semitic person saying that, I'm like, you know, it's, you know, I mean, the harsh word, which is nowhere near the N word, is the word kike. And to be honest, when it comes out, we were once
Jesse Jackson used that
in college.
Jaime.
Right.
Yeah, Jaime Town.
Yeah. Jaime Town.
When I was in college once during a winter break, we were in Hazel Park, me and Buddy Fencer, a Jewish friend, and a friend, Mike Pappas, who was in Hazel Park. And Hazel Park at the time was very redneck. And we were at the bowling alley, and there was I remember Channel 7 News was on, and this man with a long trench coat on, sitting there probably drinking all night, and there's something going on, and he goes, "Oh my God, the fucking," and he uses the N-word and the Jew, and he says, "and the Jews." And so Buddy says, "Oh," he goes, "Well, I guess he doesn't hate the Jews as much." And I said, "No, to him, the word Jew is the N-word." And so,
well, I was in Harper Woods Court about 10 years ago. I guess this guy comes in, an older white guy, and he said he's talking to the people that work in the court. I'm they're waiting for somebody. He said, they're there. They in the they took over the neighborhood. he said, I ran from Detroit. I should be owning my own home, and I'm still paying for a mortgage. He said they have infested the neighborhood. He said the colors have taken over. They was like, Mr. So-and-so. He said, I can't stand it. They ran me out in the 50s, and here I am. Now I'm an old man, and I'm still paying a mortgage. They escorted him out. They escorted him out.
It really is sad, but look, that's as you will always say, that's what we're dealing with. Let me go back to we were talking about, did Jesse Jackson say that? You said he said something about Town.
Right.
When I said it was kind of funny, I meant the Saturday Night Live skit
right.
that Eddie Murphy did with the song. I thought that was, was making a joke out of it. So I just want to make sure that we're clear.
That's Saturday night. Okay. But the best skit was when Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor.
Well, he's been in the news
when
lately.
they were saying, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, continue our conversation, Detroit in Black and White, with Vanessa Moss and Allan Lengel. I'm Adolph Mongo.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses in neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Okay. Welcome back. We continue our dialogue. Allan, you had a story.
I was going to say, this was 1995, like 2 days after the Oklahoma bombing. We learned that they were raiding a farmhouse in Decker, Michigan, the Nichols farmhouse. It was 2 hours away. I remember me and another reporter, John Bebo, jumped in a car. We took a Detroit news car. We went up to Decker, and then a photographer met us one day. And then, so the first night there, I mean, people had converged. There were here was this very super white community, a little farming community where, the scary city was 2 hours away, and they were just so happy to be in their safe little enclave. And so here it was, reporters were coming, the foreign reporters were coming from New York, from all the publications from South America and Europe. And suddenly we're all at the Decker Tavern, this redneck tavern where you probably get a beer for $1.50. And where suddenly all the reporters are there. And you're seeing like Black people and Asian people. And I remember there's some older redneck sitting at the bar, and our photographer, Joe DeVera, who's Filipino, he goes to the bathroom. And this guy just shouts, he goes, "Who let that gook in the bar?" And we're like, holy shit, and we'd see guys with gun racks running by and screaming shit at us. And Angelo Henderson, who's since passed, who won a Pulitzer Prize at the Wall Street Journal, he was working for the Journal at the time. And Angelo came right from the office. Angelo's wearing, Angelo's got he's Black. He's got kind of his hair slicked back. He's wearing a purple sports coat, walking down a dirt road. And I told him, I said, "Be careful here, man." I said, "There's some serious rednecks out here who, man, you got to be careful, at night." And I scared him, I think, so much he went home. He drove home 2 hours, came back in the morning. But,
But I was in New Orleans. I wrote an article for the Chronicle to Katrina. Went to Katrina. The first time I ever been to New Orleans, it was flood. I said it's like going to meet somebody and they laying up in a casket. That's how fucked up it was. But anyway, it was 2:00 in the morning with a photographer, reporter. We had a sheriff deputy taking us around. And so it was about 4:00. There was this big Confederate flag on one of the few bars that was open. Said, well, we want to get something to eat. They was like, nah, you don't want to go in there. They had a sign say, make my day, you know, because I'm talking about looting. I went in. Guy had a Marine Corps flag in the behind the bar. I went there, sat with fire. He started, oh, you was in the Marines? Yeah. Oh, come on in. I said, well, I got some people out in the car. Can they come in? They fed us, drinking here. Everybody in there had a rifle, some kind of weapon and shit. And it's like, he said, how could you go in there? I said, well, you know, chances you take.
Not as dangerous as the Glen Lodge Show Bar.
Oh yeah, Glen Lodge, 8 Mile Road. But the bottom line is, when I was up in the South Haven, Kalamazoo area, listen, if you get lost late at night, they might not find you know what, they like those 2 guys from Detroit. Remember, they disappeared for all those years.
Right.
And then they come find out they fed them to the hogs up there. That's what you're dealing with. Well, you know.
Crazy shit.
Well, anyway, it's been a great show today by Ike McKinnon. We was gonna have Steve Neavling from the Metro Times. He's working on some stories. I guess something happened, and we
try him again.
We'll try to get him for next week.
And we'll have to have Ike back again. I mean, it's really, you know, it's just so crazy having covered crime for decades. And one of my beats when I was in the Lansing Bureau of Detroit News was prisons. I was in all the prisons, you know, Jackson, Marquette, Coldwater, all those places, and.
I forgot to ask him, did he have a contract with the city?
So, yeah. You know, what's interesting is the fact that, you know, people say things are always changing, but things stay the same.
Right.
The fact that they had, I mean, this was headline news, 12-point plan. It was, you know, was on the news, and he said,
and the chief said,
"We've done it already, and it didn't work."
Right.
So I mean,
did they talk to the chief?
You know, he said they talked to him, but I mean, obviously they didn't talk to him about that because they wouldn't have. Maybe they would have rolled it out anyway. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. No. So now what? But this came out. They were talking about addressing the crime downtown, in particularly in Greektown. At one point in time, wasn't there a security company or something like that? Didn't
Dan Gilbert?
Didn't he have his own security
company?
I
think they probably still do. And I'm assuming they do. They have a whole center.
Are you afraid to go to Greektown?
First of all, and they probably get mad at me. I don't call it Greek town. I call it Greek block. I mean, It's not a whole town. First, second, there's not much for me to do in Greek town. But if I want to go, yes, I'm going to go. That's like asking me.
You don't go to the casinos, do you?
I'm not a casino person.
Yeah, but I'm saying
I was just at because I had to go down to the courthouse to look up some records for a story I'm working on. And I went to the Golden Fleece, which I hadn't been to in a long time, and it was kind of a little bit of a dumpy place at one time. But they've remodeled, and it's really pretty nice.
Really?
Yeah. I was surprised. It was really nice in there. Yeah, if you go in there, it's a whole new. It used to be on the lower end of all the Greek restaurants there, but it was cheap. Now it's not so cheap. It was like $13 for a Greek salad for lunch. But
really, you talking about Greektown? That used to be where black folks.
I don't have a problem with going Greektown or anywhere where downtown.
Well, why are they picking Greektown now?
You know what it is? It's because we did a story last.
It's been that way though. This is not just new. This is not new.
You know,
they're doing this in the 80s.
Maybe next week, I'll show you. We did a story for Deadline on Greektown where we interviewed all the people and stuff like that. And basically what it's become is, you know, and it's funny, I interviewed like a young woman. She was probably, I think she might have been a nursing student or something, 23, 24. And I said, well, are you worried about the violence? She goes, no. She goes, we like to see it. And I go, you like to see it? And she was like, yeah. She goes, she's like, Yeah, they like to see all that stuff. But people are there as you know, it's like Northland Mall where people used to go on Saturdays, kids used to go on Saturday, whatever. It's become like a mall scene where a lot of people want to meet, like, you know, guys and gals.
But you know, in Northland, when it was an outdoor shopping center, white kids used to riot there on the weekends. That's all, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, but
it's just a meeting. It's a social meeting place.
Yeah,
for people
I don't have a
to hang out.
problem with going anywhere downtown Detroit, period. I don't have a problem with the driving downtown. I live downtown, which reminds me, I forgot to go get back. I did make the police report, and I got a call back immediately. I've had several phone calls from detectives.
They find the people.
I have no.
Let's do. Listen, your final thought. Your final thought.
My final thought. Saturday. Have a wonderful Saturday. Looking forward to next week. Stop talking about people in their age, whether they're young or old. Stop talking about. But you gonna support Grandpa, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I love my grandparents.
Okay, you love your grandparents.
I love Grandpa. Alan.
My final thought is that I went last night to the DIA I saw a great. It's the Detroit Free Press Film Festival.
Is it tonight too?
It's today in the afternoon, tonight, tomorrow. I don't. It may end on Sunday, but there, a lot of stuff showing at the DIA and at the Science Center, which is right by there. And I saw a documentary called Cold Water Kitchen, which is basically about a chef who runs a program out of the prison there, where they're training chefs.
Cold Water, Michigan.
And then they're inviting chefs like out from the outside and restaurant owners to come sometimes for dinners there, and they're blown away by how good the food is.
Are they going to hire them?
Yeah, so they're hiring some people. One guy started his own restaurant. So it's a really cool program, and the guy who runs it he works from the heart, and he is also training these great chefs.
Okay.
So it's a very cool program. So there's a lot. I think this afternoon at 3:00, actually ML Elric speaking at the. I think there's a documentary on Elmore Leonard at 3:00 at the Science Center. But they're all through. So you can go on Detroit Free Press Film Festival, and you can see all these films. And I think the ticket was $15.
Okay, well.
And your final thought?
I don't have any final thought. That grandpa, you know what? Really, I don't want him to run, but
who else is gonna run?
Nobody.
Exactly.
So I'm supporting them. But I'm outraged that these assholes that sit on city council, etc., some of them, not all of them assholes, think they worth all this money. They hire. Now, you know what?
To be honest, the upside is that maybe.
I mean, you have to be positive and think about your self-worth. I mean, if you don't ask, you don't get fed.
Well, you hire, and then you hire all your family and friends. But anyway, we'll be back here next week, 10 a.m. This is Detroit Black and White with Allan Lengel, Vanessa Moss, I'm Adolph Mongo, and we'll see you soon.